No, this is your intro, Shu. I did the
Okay,
intro last time.
All right,
Let's go.
sure. All right.
All right, we're online.
All right. We're good. Good to go. All right. Welcome to the 18th meeting of the Junto Club, which was inspired by the original Junto Club founded by Benjamin Franklin about 300 years ago. So to discuss like philosophy, science, politics, anything that interests us. So this week we think we're going to talk about Bruce Lee, a man of my that inspires me a lot. When I was like, I actually first discovered him when I was like almost like 15, 20 years ago. So, and then anyway, so we're going to talk more about him, his life and everything else, or any question you have. So yeah, so let's get to it. So as per usual, we're going to start with a quote from Benjamin Franklin. And actually, yeah, today's quote actually, all right, for you guys, I did not post this on Google Doc, but here it is. Quote, want of care does us more damage than want of knowledge. Unquote.
Want of care? Like C-A-R-E?
Yes.
Repeat it one more time.
Want of care does us more damage than want of knowledge.
Makes sense. When you care about something, you get more invested and you could hurt more, right? And maybe you can cloud judgment to some extent, right? But knowledge is abstract, I guess, and seeking that, there's not much pain in it. I mean, maybe the knowledge hurts, but I feel like caring, you could over care about something and it's like harming you to some degree.
Yeah, but it's about the want of care. So is it like wanting someone to care about you or wanting something to care about? Like,
I think the latter. That's what I think.
What's the latter?
The wanting to care about something. That's how I take it. Like wanting to care about something versus wanting to have knowledge, I guess.
So I guess, yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Or maybe both. Or maybe both. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, so Matt, were you following up with anything?
No.
Okay. Okay. So, I guess a potential and a different definition of care is like want something to care for you, or like care can be sort of another word for like security or like safety. So I guess wanting to sort of be cared for or like in a secure environment versus like knowledge is something that must be, I guess, or that is something that's to be pursued. So, I don't know. I mean, that's sort of just me bullshitting there. I mean, I could see what Jake was saying sort of when he first described it, but yeah. So that was
But I can see the wanting of care being like want to be cared about and wanting to care for somebody, I mean, because the care can be taken away, couldn't it? I mean, can't you like get someone not care about you anymore? That hurts. But knowledge, like you said, is a constant pursuit. I mean, how does that hurt you?
So anything from you, Matt?
No, I think these are all valid. There's definitely a few ways you could take it.
So I want to ask you a question, like, what do you mean? What does want mean, I guess, here in this context?
So I think it's trying to say like what you desire, right? So want of knowledge seems more straightforward because it's like, okay, the want of knowledge would just be like the desire to have more knowledge, gain knowledge. So then it's similar for the want of care. It's just we have a few ideas of what he could mean by care, care about people caring about you, yourself being cared for, you caring about something else.
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, when I feel like because want of care means, I think it means lack of care, not like desire of care. It's more like lack, like you don't have care, right? Like lack of care.
Okay.
That phrase can be used like that too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So you don't care, but you just want to care, but you don't care.
Yeah. So if you the lack, basically if you replace want with lack, it means lack of care does more damage than lack of knowledge, right?
I like that interpretation.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's almost kind of pointing out depression in a sense, but like if you don't really have any motivation, you really can't do anything, right? Like if you don't care about anything,
What good
it's
is
very
knowledge?
hard.
Yeah. Now your job, your work, your career, your a project you work on. If you don't really care about it, even if you are a genius, you're Einstein and you know everything about this project. If you don't really care about it, it's gonna do more damage than
Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
like Shu's idea best.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
was a good
You
one.
win today.
You win that one. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. I should win
Ben
every
would be
time.
proud.
All right. So, all right. Let's go to news. The news roundtable. What do we have today?
All right, I put in something that's not exactly news, but I wanted to fill in on something we talked about last week. So I mentioned Biden's infrastructure plan, and that has a proposal to make it paid for via tax. And Mike was like, as long as he's not breaking his promise taxing me.
That's right.
So I came back after reading about his proposed tax plan, and there's no new taxes on individuals. What he wants to do is raise the corporate tax rate from the 21% it is now to 28%. Now, under Trump, we lowered it from 35 to 21. So this kind of splits that difference in half. And then the other big part of it is basically make some efforts to make it harder for corporations to avoid that tax rate. So both in terms of things about like offshoring, offices and profits and claiming it in another country, and then also proposing a corporate minimum tax. So you can't necessarily, I think the idea is you can't necessarily use deductions and rebates and stuff to remove all of your tax burden, right? That's like something Amazon's done. People are like, oh, they have so much revenue, but there are years where they paid no tax because they invested so much of it back into things, and that lets you don't have to pay taxes on stuff like if you invested or use it in certain ways. So, and those are like incentives that are good, right? Like, oh, you want companies to reinvest, but you might say, okay, well, there's a limit if you do it too much. And that's kind of what the minimum tax is supposed to address. So anyway, so that's how it plans to pay for it, Michael. It would not hit you directly.
All right, then.
Not yet.
Obviously, taxes on corporations in the end do have to be paid for consumers, but that's,
No.
Misdirection.
Yeah. No, that's probably fine then.
So you say it's increasing from the current level from 21% to 28%?
That's the proposal, yeah.
Okay.
Well, like I said, which is exactly halfway to the value it was before Trump's term when he cut it way back. So, that seems like a reasonable compromise of like, hey, this was too low. We don't have to necessarily go all the way back up. But
yeah, no, I mean, I think, I don't know. I guess 28% is a lot of money, but I guess obviously companies like Amazon, if they were investing it, like I go back and forth. I mean, yeah, I almost wish there was a way to incentivize them to invest it in ways that would be beneficial to like society at large, but I mean, I guess if we could get bigger companies like that to pay even a few percent in taxes, I feel like that would be a massive influx of money to the government. So,
I mean, I think it is good. Like Amazon obviously does a huge amount of R&D and, development and investment in their own company, which I think is good overall that they're doing that. But I do think there's logic of saying, hey, that's like not the only thing we need money for, and government can invest in some things that private companies can't, right?
Right.
Like infrastructure, right? You're not going to have private companies rebuild our infrastructure. That's never going to work.
Well, wait a minute. So I've thought of this. You incentivize companies and say, hey, if you give us like $1 billion for infrastructure, we give you like your own lane on highways. Like Amazon employees can it's a lane on highways where you need to be an employee of a company that invested over $1 billion.
Highway 85 now sponsored by Amazon.
That's right.
The Amazon lane.
That's exactly.
It'll be told.
Prime members can go ride in it for free.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
I think there are ways to get it done, but I guess taxes is whatever.
Taxes, whatever. Just the way that's worked for hundreds of years.
Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, I mean, this is all proposals right now. So, I don't even know if they have like a concrete bill written. Certainly hasn't been anything voted on, but yeah, that's the plan.
Okay. Well,
some people are slamming it. Is it for like Green New Deal? Do you have any info on that?
Yeah, I saw something like that, and I'm pretty sure it's just like an incoherent straw man, right? They're just
Mm.
like, we're just going to call it a Green New Deal, even though it has nothing to do with that at all. And then as just like a way to attack it, right? Like it's just, it's like hilariously transparent about how silly it is. I mean, even Trump wanted to do infrastructure when he ran both times. He talked about it, and the bill's not like, I mean, the infrastructure bill, I don't see much that's not bipartisan, right? It seems pretty straightforward. Both sides think infrastructure and jobs are good. So, you know,
Mm.
but
Okay.
yeah, whatever. That aside, any other news topics anyone else wanted to bring up?
I mean, there.
Mm.
I was planned on looking at the news and just didn't. So.
What? You're not busy?
It's been I don't know. I mean, it's not even that busy. It's just more like I don't know. Like I'll occasionally glance. Like, I mean, DMX. That was news.
Oh yeah. He's like brain dead, right, or something like
Yeah,
that.
he's
Like,
in a vegetative state.
Yeah.
Who's DMX?
a rapper.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Well, what happened? I forgot. I didn't read. Why is he in like a vegetative state?
OD'd and had a heart attack because of it.
Ah,
Mm.
classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, going out on top.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to pull an old dirty bastard and like hide cocaine in your ass or something, right? Or swallow it.
Yeah.
Isn't that what he did? Old dirty bastard. I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but yeah, I don't remember the circumstances surrounding his death. But
All right, I got a question for Matt. Did you look into the Georgia voting law thing?
Oh, not much.
Okay. No worry.
The two things I know, apparently, it's removes the food and water, and I think they want you to now provide a copy of identification on mail-in ballots, which I think is one of the things people are annoyed about.
Oh, okay.
Because like right now you still have to register and then ask for it, and then you have to do a signature that they check, but they want like a photocopy of like, I guess, a license or something, which does seem annoying because, you know, I don't think most people have printers at home these days. I don't. And so that's just like a bit hassle to be like, okay, now I got to go out of my way to print something. Like if you've already registered for vote, right? Like they've already checked your identity.
Okay.
And there's other stuff in there too, but I haven't.
Okay. Yeah, just a lot of controversy, like a lot of sports activity, like pouring out of Georgia, right? So yeah, it's not just hurting the people. Like, why do you? There's no need to do that, right?
Well, some people would say they're trying to retain their power on Georgia despite Atlanta growing the Democratic base in the state. So the need to do it is the fact that they're going to potentially lose their, you know, positions.
Oh yeah, no. I guess I mean that for business, like, you know, like baseball to like pulling out the game out of Atlanta, right? I'm saying that those are kind of unnecessary, right? Yeah, because you're not really hurting the government, you're hurting the people, right? Like, yeah.
Maybe it brings a lot of attention to the issue, if nothing else. You're right. It does. I mean, it hurts, you know, the economy of Georgia a little bit, but you're moving it somewhere else, so you're helping somewhere else. It's not like, you know.
It's true. Wasn't it a couple years ago when like didn't Georgia do some like anti-gay marriage law or something like that, and wasn't like production companies pulling out of Georgia?
I think it was abortion.
Yeah, it
was it abortion law? That's what it was.
Yeah.
It was abortion law or something. I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but I remember like production companies pulling out and
a
know.
lot of actually like movie business got moved to somewhere else. Yeah.
The funny balance between a lot of like rural, deep South red counties voting on stuff, and then Atlanta being like a major metropolis with like, you know, international companies want to participate in. And the friction between those two is, I don't know, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to a lighter topic as usual. Bruce Lee. So yeah, let's bring on the questions, I guess.
All right. Well, Shu, why don't you give us like your brief spiel about what Bruce Lee means to you / how you discovered of him? Or you want us to just start on questions?
Actually, I'm gonna start with a question for you guys. I'm assuming everybody knows who Bruce Lee is. So if you don't know, you know, you're probably living under a rock, right? So, so I guess I want to ask you guys, when did you first like heard of Bruce Lee?
I mean, he's one of those people who was so famous and before our time that I don't even remember, right? Like it's like you're a child and you just know who Bruce Lee is. You don't remember the first time you heard about him.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I was probably a kid. I mean, I always loved martial arts movies and stuff. And I mean, seeing Enter the Dragon was just awesome. You know, I mean, I also love Jackie Chan and like Donnie Yen and stuff, you know, like, so
Right.
I love martial arts movies. So Bruce Lee, yeah, I can't remember exactly how old I was, probably like a kid or something like that. And caught his movie and was like, awesome. So I don't even know if I've seen all of his stuff, but you know, good portion of it. So it's actually been a while since I've seen a lot of his movies. So,
Yeah.
but he's great.
No, I watched a lot of Jackie Chan, Steven Seagal. You
Oh
know.
yeah. Aikido. The Aikido guy.
Aikido, yeah, that's right. Steven Seagal, if you watch his movies, the early ones, my two favorites were Out for Justice and Above the Law. And he had like, he didn't, and when he gets his ponytail, and the longer Steven Seagal's hair gets, the worse his movies are. Even though they're great. Like, I love them. Like, I love Under Siege and Under Siege 2 and stuff, but they're just cheesier as his hair got longer. So, but yes. The Aikido guy.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Is he like Russian now? Like he changed his citizenship.
Oh, did he? Steven Seagal? I know there's some weird
Yeah.
stuff. I know he had like wasn't he? He was a cop for a while. Didn't he have some cop show that he was doing?
Yeah,
Some,
oh
like-
yeah, he
yeah.
did have a cop show he was doing. Yeah, I
Wasn't
don't
that New Orleans police or something too?
That might have been. That might have been. Yeah.
Aikido is perfect for those stuff, right? You want to disable people without like killing them, right? The soft
Right.
style.
It's perhaps the best use of Aikido. That's the way I will put that. What Shu and Mike know that the audience doesn't is I have opinions about Aikido and they're not positive.
Aikido has its places. It has its places.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it can do its thing. It can, you know.
Mm-hmm. All right, we can
We'll
maybe
get
we
into-
might get into why Aikido is bad from your perspective later. But
I think some of the questions will get there.
yeah. What about you? Oh yeah, I think do I must ask you already, Mike? When you first heard of Bruce Lee?
Yeah, well, I assume
okay.
when I was young and watching this.
Gotcha. So I guess the other question, like, why do you like him? Like, what is his appeal to you guys? At least I'm assuming that's some kind of appeal.
Well, I think it's cool. I mean, I've seen some of his movies. I'm not really that crazy about the old martial arts movies. They're cool, but it's not like a huge fan or anything. But I do think it's really interesting, especially when I was like refreshing on some of his thoughts, some of his writing and stuff, how he was really, I mean, he really was a precursor to like the modern MMA in a lot of ways. And I think it's a real shame that he died because I think he would have loved UFC. Like, I think he would have been like, this is validation of so many of his ideas on martial arts, and seeing how it evolves. So I think he was a man before his time.
Definitely.
I guess he was a superstar. So maybe he was also a man of his time, but from like a fighting perspective, he was ahead of the times.
Yeah.
Well, he created his own style, you know. I mean, Jeet Kune Do.
That's right.
You know, so I mean, yeah, he definitely would have appreciated MMA for sure. So I think even some fighters actually try to like study Jeet Kune Do, maybe some MMA guys, I think, or maybe.
I mean, probably. I don't think it's really that much. Like, I don't think there's that much of like a concrete style to Jeet Kune Do. It's almost more like a philosophy.
Yes.
Which, like I said, I think if you look at most MMA practitioners, sort of inherently adapt it anyway, even if whether they took it from Bruce Lee himself or it's just like, hey, this is just kind of like a consensus of like, hey, yeah, this is the right way to do things. And we know that now. But like in the 70s, that was, revolutionary. No one knew that, right?
Yeah.
Or not many people were talking about it.
Yeah. I would say if Bruce Lee would say about Jeet Kune Do is that he doesn't want other people like to follow him, right? It's almost like you can study Jeet Kune Do, but you almost like make it your own, right? You don't follow everything that he says that you should do, like techniques and stuff, but make it your own somehow, right? So it doesn't have to be, you don't need to follow the structure like very strictly, right? So yeah. All right. So
Well,
yeah, Mike.
I would just say that I don't know nearly as much about him as any of you, but I mean, I would say that's like I appreciate just from the reading I did leading up to the episode. Like I named the episode a quote I liked by him, which is basically as you think, so shall you become. So I like that type of philosophy. You know, I mean, I think certainly like I've lived my life basically being like, if I train, like if I push really hard in a certain direction, you're able to attain what you want to. So, I mean, obviously he pushed, you know, to turn his body into a weapon essentially. So, and was successful at doing that. And also I think what I learned about his death, like I think that can show you like pushing too far in that direction can also be a negative thing. But so that's, I think his life teaches interesting lessons. So
wait, are you okay? So I guess so you have you been just learning about him recently, or do you know about his philosophy reading stuff already before?
No, I mean, I may have encountered it in my life, but no, I mean, it's like if you would ask me like Bruce Lee, I would have said like you know, I know martial art, like I know martial arts, and he was in movies, and that's basically like I had a very superficial appreciation of him before this.
Yeah. I think one amazing thing I think about him is as Matt, you already mentioned, I really like his philosophy, his writing as well. So he's one thing that surprised a lot of people, and then a lot of people just think he is like a martial artist, but he actually is a philosopher as well. He actually went to Seattle, University of Seattle, and actually majored in philosophy, right? So, yeah.
All right, Shu. Well, then let's. I want to ask you Bruce Lee's most famous quote. Do you know what it is? Or I feel like most famous philosophical statement.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I wanted. Okay, what is it?
Be like water.
That was. I knew exactly what it was. Be like
Shu,
water, my friend.
Shu, I want to ask you what you think "be like water" means.
So, be like water. That's the wrong quote. Okay.
Oh,
you
no.
know what's you need to get rid of like, right?
Oh,
like water.
Be water.
So, yes. It's called, the full quote is be water, my friend.
Be water, my friend.
Yes. So, well, first of all, I'm gonna talk about a little bit caveat about like water, right? Be like water is not correct, because like water, that means you are not water, right? If you are water, you cannot, there's no need for you to be like water, right? So right. So anyway, let's go back to the main topic. Is be water. What does that mean? It means like be, in terms of that, be someone is like, can be very simply put, adapt to any kind of situation, right? Don't be restricted to any kind of structure, right? So that everything you learn, right? And then when you apply it, you know, you don't have to apply it exactly in the way you learn it somehow. Be fluid, right? So yeah, so I would say just be adaptable if you want to think about it that way, right? But I mean, the way he say is that if you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup, right? If you put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle, and then like water can flow, right? Like very like gently, right? Like very like can flow, but it also, when it has a lot of power, like tsunami, right? It can crash, right? Can destroy. It has so much power when you want to destroy anything, right? So yeah, you can do that with your, I mean, everything you, I guess, be like. That's why I guess being water is a model inspiration. You want to be something like that when you do everything, And then you know when you if you talk about martial art fighting, right? It's like you don't want to go hard on hard. Now, if someone punch you, you don't want to just punch at the same time, right? You actually flow with the punch, right? You want to maybe you extend your hands out, guide the punch, into other directions, flow with it, and then attack back, right? So it's like down crash into the obstacle, basically go around it, kind of in a way. Anyway, so I'm not sure if I did a very good job explaining it, but yeah. Any questions on that?
No, I think that was pretty spot on. I'll tell you what, one of my favorite quotes from him is, "Don't pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." And I like that quote a lot.
Oh,
because oftentimes people wish they want like an easy life, but you're like, there's no such thing, right? So you need the strength to endure a tough one. So I've always liked that quote.
Can you repeat that? Actually, I don't think I have heard it before.
It's don't pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I always liked that one. That was pretty cool.
So I want to go back at Be Water a little bit. Do you know how he came up with that Be Water?
Mm-mm.
You don't know the
No.
story. So okay, when he first started Wing Chun when he was like 13, like maybe 15, or maybe he was like 16. So I mean, he started martial art when he was like 13, right? And then he kept training. And then one day, like when he was probably 16 or 17, he was training really hard. And then during the class, his teacher, the Wing Chun teacher, Ip Man, and there's a movie about Ip Man already.
Yep.
But anyway, he looked at Bruce Lee. He's like very like impatient, always like go hard. Like when he training, he always go hard and very tense, like very like not calm, right? Not being peaceful, not relaxing, right? Not relaxed. So the teacher always ask, tell Bruce that you need to Bruce Lee, you need to come, relax more, be more peaceful with your technique. Don't train too hard, right? So he just like, but he can't get it. He's just like, okay, I must relax. But when you tell yourself you must relax, is almost like antithesis of relaxing, right? So anyway, he got frustrated. So his teacher sent him back home, like to not train for a week, right? So during that week, he just like not training, but he just got very frustrated. So one day he basically just take his boat out to the river there, just to relax, get some exercise in just rowing, right? And then one time, and then as he was in the boat, he was thinking about like his class, what his teachers told him, and he just got very, very frustrated. So he came, so he's and that time and that frustration, he punched in the water, right?
Yeah.
And then when he punched in the water, he realized, what the heck is going on? Like water, when you punch it, it just like doesn't do anything to the water, right? Water just like doesn't care. It's like it flows, and when he try to grasp the water, you can't grasp it. It's like it flows out of your, you can't really hold it, right? So then that's when he hit this epiphany, like, oh, just be water, because that's what it means. Like, it's not martial artist, right? It's every martial artist, he's tried to be water. So that's kind of his philosophy, right? And from that, the martial art actually to him is more than just martial art, just fighting. It's a metaphor for life, kind of in a way, right? Because when you're actually fighting with someone, right? When you're sparring with someone, actually that is where it's almost a laboratory where you can test yourself, like experiment with things, right? So now, for example, I think he like to say that, I mean, to know yourself is to study oneself in action with another person, right? So, and fighting is one of those, right, where you can test things out, right? And because sometimes when you fight, someone punch you in the face, you got really angry, right? And that's when if you get really angry with the other person, you probably gonna lose the fight, right? Because you are not controlling your emotion. So basically, if you sparring is almost like a way to practice that. But anyway, yeah, going back to the water story, that's how he come up with the epiphany on Be Water. Yeah. Any thoughts?
I remember that story now. That sounds familiar. So, because Ip Man is by the way, have you seen any of the Ip Man movies? They're pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't seen all of them, but they're pretty. Speaking of Donnie Yen does Ip Man. So,
yeah. And also Matt is a hater of Wing Chun. So he's not
What?
believer of Wing Chun.
Oh, I was going to say Wing Chun is a pretty damn. I think that's like top tier martial art. I think.
All right. Well, we will get into this a little bit, perhaps. So,
Oh, wow.
facts of Jeet Kune Do number 9. Okay, so in the Tao Jeet Kune Do, however you pronounce it, there's 16 facts. Number 9, all-out sparring and actual combat training on moving targets.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's kind of just a statement that doesn't have the full, but I think the larger context is, especially when you include some of those other things, is that for martial arts, it's very important to have that, what I would call live training or sparring. And I think this is something his book emphasizes, and something some martial arts, like a lot of Wing Chun schools today, don't have, where they, don't really do full contact sparring that basically teaches you how to really fight. What do you think about that, Shu?
So I guess you're talking about, are you saying that your main criticism of Wing Chun is that it doesn't do a lot of full contact fighting? You don't think it's kind of practical, right? That's your main.
I
Yeah.
would say, I mean, yeah, okay. So I was gonna kind of go more from talking about Bruce Lee's quote, but like, yeah, my opinion on Wing Chun and other martial arts, and this is a school by school thing, right? So it's hard to encompass something that's practiced around the world. It's not going to be the same everywhere, but a lot of places, um, yeah, they don't really do real hard sparring or live combat, and
Hmm.
because of that, they don't really practice realistic scenarios or techniques because they're
Hmm.
not kind of pressure tested, basically.
Oh yeah.
And
I
this is
mean,
why, I mean, there's been, you can find a few videos of people who try to take Wing Chun into MMA, UFC
mm,
style stuff. And there's two things that happen. Either one, they stick closely to sort of the Wing Chun style and then they get destroyed. Or two, they have some minor influence from it, but they've largely adapted to the more generic MMA style, right? They've
mm.
shifted a lot of aspects of their fighting based on other things. And then they look a lot more similar. Now, of course, they have their own flavor and style that could, kind of show kind of their different background, but it's not so significant.
Yeah. So I want to respond with 2 points. I think first point is like most of a lot of martial arts, they don't do a lot of hanging like full contact training, right? So that is a very fair point. Not a lot of martial arts do that. Even the style I'm training in right now, we don't do much. Even though initially I was drawn to the sparring part, but as you go, you just like practice the forms, right? And then also other stuff, and you don't very like maybe less than 10% of the time you do. I would say maybe sometimes less than 5% of the time you do like actually sparring, and even sparring you actually wear the gears, right? And you do like some very safe sparring, like no gouge to the eyes, of course, no elbows, and then very like point sparring kind of thing. I think that's very very fair, right? But however, I would say like because you are assuming that martial art should be is I mean I guess your point, you're assuming that everybody want to study martial arts because they want to learn how to fight, which is good, which is correct. But some of them is for self-defense, exercise, right? Or the philosophy of it. And then martial art to me is almost like meditation in motion, right? You very meditated, studying the form. So that's why I'm okay with not doing that all the time. But I would say I think all martial artists need to do more of that, right?
What are you studying, Shu? What martial arts are you practicing?
Kanu, which means hard and soft in Vietnamese, is a Vietnamese martial art. Is a combined like 7 style of martial art, and then called hard and soft. So hard style is like Shotokan karate, right? These are very hard stress style, and the soft style is more like Tai Chi, Aikido. So basically combine all these hard and soft principles together and into a style. So you kind of study all that, right? So actually we have a dojo here, so it's a plug. So Samin Shu Dojo. So if you want to go check it out, you actually can study if you want to. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Matt Matt, your main issue with Wing Chun is more just like a lot of schools and don't practice the full contact. But if they did, how would you feel about it?
Well, I think if they did, I think they would usually realize that like some of the things you see a lot of Wing Chun practitioners doing aren't really effective. And then, yeah, that would be. So I guess I'm gonna get into this through another quote to get into a larger topic. So Bruce Lee, this is a quote from his book. "It's all right to change one's style to adapt to various circumstances, but remember not to change your basic form. By changing style, I mean switching your plan of attack." So I really like this quote. I'm going to stretch its meaning a little bit beyond what he literally said, but I've heard this described before that there's only one correct technique to do something, okay? So a lot of martial arts do a lot of different things, but I've heard people claim that there's one correct technique to do something. If you want to punch a certain way, there's one right way to do it. And what styles really are, styles should not be about different ways to punch or kick or do things, but styles should be different approaches to how you fight, like what you try to accomplish, what moves you lean towards, and things like that, which makes style much more personal. And a lot of this comes from is when you look at martial arts across the world that have this sort of hard sparring, realistic fighting as part of it, things from Sando in China, which is like Chinese kickboxing, to Muay Thai, boxing and kickboxing in the West, things like that. You'll see a lot of the techniques and styles and approaches end up looking very similar. So the punches look similar, the kicks look similar, things like that. And the idea is that there's fundamentally, as a human, there's a right way to do that. Even if different styles maybe focus on different approaches to fighting and more like a strategic level, or they have different rule sets that focus on different techniques, but there's a right way to do a technique. So backtracking a little bit, the important part is that when you do this sort of realistic fighting, you learn what really works and not works. And again, and this is not just a Wing Chun thing, but a lot of, especially in the US, there's a lot of BS martial arts school that like don't really have people sparring for real. They just make you do a bunch of forms and dance essentially, which Shu makes a great point. If you're just looking for exercise and some fun, that's fine. But if you're claiming to be like, hey, we teach you how to fight effectively, that's like a different thing.
Right. For sure.
So I want to hop back to your second point before I go into the style thing, right? The quote of you just mentioned, which is very valid. And the other ones, I think you were saying that Wing Chun, you see a lot of example of Wing Chun people that when they get in the ring with other people, they will stick with Wing Chun and then they end up losing, right? So
I've seen a few videos of it. I haven't seen like a comprehensive survey,
I guess my point is that a lot of times I don't think there's one single style that's the best, right? And there's no style you cannot compare. It's hard really compare the pipe style to style. So it's always the people, the person who practicing, right? And the people that you see in your video in the ring, they are probably not the best Wing Chun practitioner, right? Or even maybe may not even be the average. I don't know. So I don't think they are a good representation, even though they got beat by some karate guy. It doesn't mean that karate is better than Wing Chun or boxing is better than Wing Chun. Even though I do believe that if you want to really learn fighting, you should just learn boxing. Boxing is really good. So anyway, even though without kicks, right? Kick is kind of useless sometimes. But anyways, because it got anyway. So I want to go back to this. I guess any thoughts on the thing I just say about the style and then people?
Yeah. So I think that's kind of why I was bringing up that quote from Bruce Lee, where like style is like, how did he put it? By style, I mean switching your plan of attack, not your basic form, right? So what I would say is when you see some of these Wing Chun people, it's not, it's like sometimes they try to like fundamentally approach like the fight in a way that's different, which would be fine, but it doesn't seem to work, right? Like the classic Wing Chun guard of your hands like this in front of you is not an effective guard. It's not what Bruce Lee put in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. It's not what any other martial art uses. And I would argue it's just not actually a good guard to start with. You are disadvantaged by having your hand leading out to some significant amount. It's not really covering anything, which just makes your job harder. That's like a specific concrete example. But so the point is, and I think this goes along with Bruce Lee's philosophy where he's like, it's not supposed to be about a style, but what you see sometimes with Wing Chun people or other things, I don't want to just beat up on Wing Chun the whole time, but you'll see people trying to be like, this is our style, right? Like, here's the things that are different. And because of that, they try to like conform to that very concretely rather than just adapting into the just general, like more loose, fluid fighting.
I think the comment on one of the things you're saying, Shu, and I agree, there's definitely no like probably ideal style, but I think when it comes down to fighting, from what in my own personal experience, I think size can make a difference in technique, but I think what can win fights is just how crazy you are, how willing you're like. I mean, if you could, that guy's like, I have no training, and here you're fighting someone. I mean, okay, fine. If you're a master in something, I mean, yeah, you have the advantage, but I think ultimately, if you're crazy enough to be like, you can hit me in the face, but I'm still coming at you. I'm going to take your ass down. And I'm crazy enough to just go for it. You're probably going to win the fight. I mean, some size can be a difference and some things could be a fear, but I think ultimately it comes to just, are you willing to be like, I want to kill you? Sorry, did I skip out?
We
were able to still hear. No, I think that's true. I think sometimes in fighting, you have to take a risk to win. Yeah. It's one of those things, like, unless you're just like way better than the person, being willing to take risks, doing something that's like, hey, I might take some damage doing this, gives you an opportunity to win. Of course, if you take a risk and you just get like squared in the jaw with a full power punch, you'll probably get knocked out. But no, that can definitely there's definitely an element of that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and that remind me of a question that someone asked Bruce Lee, are you confident? do you think that you can take on anybody on the street or something like that? And I think his answer was like, he didn't really answer that directly, but I think he part of the quote what he says that if you want gonna kill me, you know, if you want to defeat me, you actually need to put everything you have in you, because Bruce Lee, I am going to put everything down. You know, I'm not gonna give up. You know, just like never. I'm gonna put everything, my heart, my life into it. You know, you better kill me, otherwise I'm not gonna. You know,
that's why that's why if you fight, you don't fight to win. You fight to
Yeah.
survive. That's how you got to fight somebody. You fight to live. You're like, you have to be like, they're gonna kill me if I don't kill them in some regard. You don't kill them, right? You know, because if you're just thinking, I just want to win and talk shit, you're like, yeah, it's different, right? But if you're like, nah, think if it's like this guy's gonna kill me, and you have that defense, then yeah, you're probably gonna. But yeah, Bruce Lee used to get challenged all the time by people on the street. People always would challenge him and be like, yeah, let's fight and do this. And,
I would suck.
you know, oh yeah,
So-
you just 1-inch punch him, and then that'd be it. Get away from him.
I want to mention something to that though. So that idea of like your fight to survive, you know, like is a lethal thing. Now it's one thing on the street that might be the right way to approach things because you never know what someone's going to do. But I've seen people take that logic as an excuse essentially to avoid that real contact sparring, realistic training that I was talking about earlier. I've talk to people in my life, multiple, who are like, oh, I train XYZ martial art. We don't spar ever because it's too deadly. Like it's too dangerous. Like we can't spar with our partners because it's too dangerous. So they do this very fake, was what I would call it, you know, kind of setup where the partner pretends to do something and then lets you kind of practice that technique on them. Which whether even if it's a good technique, like it really does work, you will never learn to apply it in a realistic scenario if you don't do it on someone who's like actually resisting, actually fighting you. So it doesn't even matter separate from, is it a good technique? So yeah, sometimes honestly, when people who are martial artists do the you know, it's too deadly sort of thing, my first thought is sort of skepticism, like, okay, because look, I would much rather the professional boxer who hasn't learned how to do deadly techniques, has just learned how to punch someone in the face really good and practice it for thousands of hours against really good fighters, over someone who actually learned the deadliest technique in the world but has never done it against someone moving around and trying to hit them, right?
Yeah.
The boxer's going to win in that scenario pretty much every time.
I think that's actually another Bruce Lee quote where he's like, I don't fear the man who knows like 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times.
Yeah.
I think that's another
Yeah,
Bruce Lee quote. And that's
exactly,
true, right?
yeah.
I mean, if you just can do this one punch and you're like, I master just a punch. I can't do shit, but I can punch through a goddamn concrete wall. Then like, you're pretty good. You're going to be, you'll probably win, you know, because it just takes one hit and then you're down. So let me ask this one question for you guys. Then what's your favorite martial art? Like,
so
what do you like the most?
before you go there, I want to summarize Jake's philosophy of fighting is be crazy, my friend, I guess.
Yeah, be crazy. Exactly. Be water, but also be crazy.
Yeah.
Be a tsunami. Just be a tsunami.
Yeah. All right, let's go with the question.
Yeah.
So
What's
your
your
question
favorite?
is-
What's like your favorite martial art?
All right. You know, I might have to give it to Muay Thai. Those people are crazy
great.
bastards.
Yes.
Like I've gone to a couple more like amateur Muay Thai fights, even amateurs, right? But like they're doing knees and kicks with their shins and elbows with like no covers at all and hitting each other in the legs and face. They are tough and they hit hard and fast. They're probably not the best examples of Bruce Lee's philosophy of fighting, but they hit hard and fast and they're tough as shit. And I would not want to box a Muay Thai fighter who's good.
Oh, yeah.
I agree,
Very
I agree with
scary.
that. Matt, you should check out the movie. It's a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie from the 80s called Kickboxer, if you've ever seen it. But it's about Muay Thai. And I mean, those guys will kick like concrete walls with their shins just to strengthen their bones. And like, it'll like break away like their shin bone to like, and regrow more bone to make it like harder. So they'll just like, I'm with you, man. Muay Thai is really intense. It's
For some
Yeah.
context for our listeners, I've done a handful of martial arts in my life, and like Muay Thai was one of them. I trained it for like a year, just kind of through my college years. I kind of hodgepodge different gyms and stuff because I was moving around and I'm never around consistently. But it hurts like a motherfucker to get kicked with someone's shin hard. It hurts really bad, and to block. So normally they try to kick your thigh, but the block is to pick up and have your own shin intersect, which hurts incredibly. Like it's incredibly painful as well to block it correctly.
Yeah.
It's just so yeah. If you toughen up your shins, they become a serious weapon. But it takes a lot of time and dedication and hurt to do that.
And a lot of pain. Absolutely. No, I'm with you. Muay Thai is pretty damn intense.
And obviously, there's a lot of other great martial arts too. But yeah, those they
Now,
get special mention.
Okay, Shu, I'll say mine, and Shu, what are yours?
Oh, me. So to me, I guess similar to Bruce Lee, I don't believe in styles. So I don't really have a favorite style. I just take whatever I like to basically study any style that I encounter too. So, and then his philosophy is about like, also something about his, so first he doesn't believe in styles, right? And then the other thing is like learning about any style is like take what's useful, right? And then discard what's useless, and then add uniquely your own, right? So I kind of like to basically like study any styles and then just take what's like useful to me, you know, and then just like, you know, something like that. So I've been exploring different styles like Tai Chi, you know, different other styles, right? So any style, so basically I guess I don't have favorite style because I want to learn any other style. However, I would say I really do like the idea of the soft style, right? Like Tai Chi, Aikido. I like the idea of like, you know, flowing with your opponent, right? Like, so you are not using like just using your brute force, right? And then the yin yang idea of blending, right? Then this Tai Chi idea of like soft, and then but soft doesn't mean it's not powerful, right? So anyway, so I like the philosophy idea behind those styles. I would say those are my favorite form, but those actually take a long time to learn, to master, like 20 years to master, right? Aikido and Tai Chi stuff, if you be really good at it. So yeah, so I haven't really started, I have studied Aikido a little bit, and I really like it, but anyway, so yeah, so basically soft style, I guess, but yeah.
Okay. I would say for me, like I'm going to do different things, right? Because I feel like Muay Thai is definitely awesome for like effectiveness, right? It might not look pretty, but it's effective. I also think Krav Maga is pretty freaking cool.
Oh yeah.
I think that's really effective. But I think that's like Israeli martial arts sort of deal. But in terms of like showiness, like what looks cool to me, like I love drunken boxing. Like that's really cool. You know what I'm talking about? You know, like the you know, and like fighting, like, and I love Shaolin Kung Fu with like the animals. You're like, I'm fucking snake, you know, and like eagle and stuff, like a tiger, you know, whether they're really effective in like, you know, real case scenarios, they look really cool. Because Matt, you mentioned like old school martial art movies of like the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. I love those old cool kung fu ones, even though it's like a dance, like the choreography of it. It might not be real. Like it's not as intense as like if you watch like Ong Bak, right? The Protector, Tony Jaa, you know, is another great. He's Muay Thai all the way, and his shit's, you know, that's like intense, cool fighting. But that's a little bit, you know, nowadays, I guess. But like, I don't know, Shaolin Kung Fu is always like cool and showy to me. But in terms of effectiveness, I say like Krav Maga, Muay Thai. I mean, that shit's gonna like, if you're fighting someone who's a kickboxer, that's gonna be now wrestling is a different story. Now, I one time talked to a guy who was like, if you had a boxer versus a wrestler, put the money on the wrestler. Because they'll grapple you. Because once you get, because if you get a chokehold, you get a guy, you get them close. Then like that boxer has nothing. They have nothing.
Yeah,
you put them in a chokehold, done.
I mean, UFC, the early UFCs taught that lesson very clearly, right? People who had no ground experience could not, almost never stop the other person from taking the fight to the ground where they got destroyed. And like wrestlers, it's funny because wrestling doesn't really teach you how to do any move that harms your opponent, but it makes you fantastic at getting like the advantageous position on the ground, right? So from there, you could just sort of throw a random elbow, it doesn't really matter. Or if you learn a few, you know, arm locks, chokes, a few other things that some other martial arts have to add into that, you become very dangerous.
Just a BJJ, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
I was going to say, you were talking about soft style, Shu. What about, I mean, the ultimate soft style? And by ultimate, I mean the most popular probably now, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Proven very clearly to be effective in real fights.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do like it too. I mean, I haven't practiced as much.
You should do like Capoeira. What is that, Capoeira, whatever like that? The like dancing one.
The dancing one,
yeah.
You know, like
Capoeira. Capoeira, that's what it's called.
Yeah. And that's I would like to study that as well, actually. But yeah, BJJ is really good. I'm not sure I would call that soft style, right? You were just wrestling, like grappling on the ground, right? So it's not. It's a little bit different, I would say, based on the. But anyway, but yeah, for I guess where I was going with that actually, I'm not sure. But
I mean,
yeah,
isn't it? I mean, jujitsu is a soft style, right?
Jiu-jitsu is a soft
traditional
style. Yeah.
jujitsu, right?
Yeah.
So Brazilian jiu-jitsu is a variant of it, but I
Yeah,
would
it
say
took-
it's fair to call it a soft style. It's just done on the ground instead of standing
Right.
up.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, if anybody want to like really learn how to fight on the street, yeah, BJJ obviously highly recommended because as they say, 90% of the fight and Andy on the ground, right?
Yeah.
True.
So Michael, what's your favorite martial art? Flailing? Is that your
Smith and Wesson, Jake.
Yeah. There you go. That wins every fight. That wins
Yeah,
every
that's
fight.
right.
What good
What
is
is
what
that?
good is a kick if you got a gun?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
Oh, you're talking about a brand, like a gun
A
brand?
gun.
Yeah, Smith and Wesson is like a brand, is a gun brand.
Oh, wow.
that's-
Well-
Mike laughs, but you don't have a gun, Mike. Don't lie to us.
No,
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's true. But I was thinking throughout all of this, like, to be honest, in today's world, like, 1,000 punches doesn't mean shit if someone's shot at a target 1,000 times. So,
It's fair.
so
Fair.
I mean,
Michael doesn't have a gun; he just has money, so he was like, "I'll sue
Yeah.
you."
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll
You
be
don't-
like, here's my wallet. There's a limitless credit card in it. Go get it.
Yeah.
Then run.
sounds like between the four of us, Mike is gonna win the fight every single time.
Well, I
Yeah.
take it. Well, no, because Matt Matt showed me what Matt was talking about earlier with there's a right way to punch. I mean, it makes sense. Like human bodies, the mechanics of them are relatively uniform, and the way to maximize the force behind the punch, are going to do basically the same thing for everyone. But he gave me boxing lessons for about 8 weeks in the lab and showed me sort of how to throw punch, how to throw basic combinations and stuff. But I think it was Shu who during this training session said, you want to know what the best approach to any fight is to run.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Actually, no, yeah, nice. Lesson well learned.
that's
You're
right.
such an excellent student.
I am.
Another martial art I really like is ninjutsu, and I think that's a really cool one too. So
What
whether
do
it's-
they actually do? Just being a ninja?
Yeah.
Well, so ninjutsu was about eye gouging. Because when you mentioned eye gouging, I was like, "Are you taking ninjutsu?" Because it's about eye gouging. It's about breaking limbs. And so yes, it's so with ninjas, right? Like in historical times, ninjas were just farmers. That's why their weapons were a sickle and they put on a chain and their sword. They couldn't afford stuff and they were just spies essentially. And they weren't fighters. So samurais were I'm a master swordsman. So if a ninja was I'm facing off this, I have to disarm him, right? So it's about so ninjutsu is about eye gouging. You grow your nails out. So you eye gouge, you break limbs, so you get the hell out of there. Because ninjas, they're about evasiveness, right? They don't want to fight. It's about stealth. It's about spine. They didn't really wear the I mean, maybe during the Warring States period, they had some of the traditional what we think of ninjas, right? But they wouldn't wear black because black could stand out. So they would really wear blues or browns and greens to blend in with the night more. And they would spy, and they were just farmers. It started off just small time things, but then obviously daimyos would hire these people and they would train, and ninjatos are shorter swords, but they have the square suba or the hilt or whatever, the guard would be square, because what they would do is stab that in the ground and step on it so they can climb up stuff and then grab it with their feet and pull their sword up essentially. But ninjutsu was always kind of neat. Whether that has real world stuff nowadays, I mean, who even trains in ninjutsu anymore? I mean, I don't even know where you'd go for a school. I mean, probably in Japan, I'm guessing, but I think if you could find I think it also had a form of jujitsu and stuff, and sort of a soft style, but being instead of a hold, I'm going to just break your arm, or I'm going to gouge your eyes and then get the hell out of there.
How did you know so much about it?
I actually really love Japanese history. I eat that
Hmm.
stuff up. So, because I think as a kid, I loved samurais and ninjas, and it's so I just looked up at a lot of that stuff. So I think it's really,
sounds
That's
You're
a
a
cool name.
weeb.
I know, right?
It's a weeb. We didn't know.
Get out of here, Matt. Get out of here. Well, now I'm getting to Korean stuff. So I'm being a queeb
yeah.
now.
Oh wait,
Which-
what's weave again?
Weeb is short
yeah.
for weeaboo, which is
Yeah.
the stereotypically the Americans or Western people obsessed with Japan and Japanese culture and stuff.
I don't have a waifu pillow or whatever. So, don't-
All right, sounds good. So I'm going back to the Bruce Lee and some of the styles. Going back to Matt's quote that brought up about style, right? So have you heard of the? Do you know for his founding principle, his basically main philosophy for Jeet Kune Do. Do you know what's the main philosophy? Like, can summarize in like a sentence? I think he actually had it a writing somewhere on his style.
Be water.
Yeah,
No, it's called he's the saying for his Jeet Kune Do is basically use no style as style, and use and having no limitation as limitation kind of thing. So yeah, use no style. So yeah, he believed that that's why going back now he doesn't believe in style because he believed that style actually separates people, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, so yeah, so then that's what he yeah, it's like then that can actually going back to like a lot of like government stuff, right? Like a lot of people like believe in certain form of governments, like really the best for every country, right? For I think American like Matt and probably will believe that democracy or capitalism the best, right? You can apply it to every single country maybe, but actually like if you're using like that style, I mean same thing, right? And like not every form of government is good for everybody, right? And going back to martial art a little bit, even within a single style, the way you're doing a technique is different, right? Even though you teach a single technique like one way, and the style may say, you do it this way, but every individual gonna do it very differently, right? You should adapt the style to you, not you to the style, basically, right? So like for example, you do a karate punch or something, right? The punch is a punch, but individually might do it differently, right? So basically adapt that to. So anyway, yeah. So that's something that about style, yeah.
No, it makes sense because I mean, a style it could rigid. You're rigid in that, right?
Yeah.
And if someone comes at you with something like, if your style is more like, okay, I'm better with like punches, but they're like, I'm Taekwondo, so I'm gonna do mainly kicks. You're not used to that, so you got to adapt to everything, And then even use environment. You could be like Jackie Chan and use an environment, like kick up a chair and like throw it at a guy.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Shu? Just open-ended question. How do you think Bruce Lee would view like the modern MMA UFC? Do you think he'd be like, this is exactly what I was talking about? Do you think he would have, like, obviously they fight a little different than he did, but do you think he would have ended up fighting the same, like hypothetically had it been in that time?
I think he advocated that all right. Like, we'll call you about like, he really advocated like full combat sparring. Like there's full contact, full out, right? No rules, right? How he would say he might go actually a little bit beyond MMA, like no rules, right? So anything goes. Basically, that's his style. So actually, like one of the rumor, like actually not rumor, like fight that when he was in start a school in Chinatown, in San Francisco, right? He tried to teach like martial art to everybody, like not just Chinese, right? So he actually got in the other like traditional Chinese schools send challenges to him, right? So hey, you cannot teach, white people or black people more Chinese kung fu, right? So he ended up during that challenge, actually, when they try to sit down and set out the rules, Bruce Lee basically saying there's no rules, right? Everything goes, like eye gouging, everything goes, right? And that's why when one of his movies, I think the second movie, Chinese Connection, he actually bite the opponent, right? When he got like unlock or something, he just bite it, right? So that's his philosophy. Now anything goes. No, yeah. So yeah, I would say so. I would say he, in summary, he really loved MMA, but I'm not sure. Yeah, he might go a little bit farther, but I'm not sure how practical they're gonna be, right? So
Bruce Lee would be like, "Can we just recreate the Coliseum? Just fight to the death and pay for it. Here we go." He taught Kareem Abdul-Jabbar too.
Yeah, I did know that.
Yeah, it was in Game of Death. In fact, he died, I believe, making Game of Death, and they had to use like a different actor to fill in some of those parts. And I think that was Bruce Lie. Yeah, it was L-I.
All right, so so we got 5 more minutes, right? So let's
there's one more quote I wanted to bring up.
All right, go ahead.
Unless you had something more important you wanted to say.
No, I'll say let's go with the quote.
All right, I like this quote. Keep the argumentation going. Okay, so here it comes. Instead of going to the heart of things, flowery forms and artificial techniques are ritualistically practiced to simulate actual combat. Thus, instead of being in combat, these practitioners are doing something about combat. So this is another quote from him in his book. I think pretty clearly criticizing martial arts and martial artists who spend a lot of times doing complex forms. which is
Yeah.
very common. I did that for years
Oh, yeah.
as a kid in karate, right?
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Which makes sense for now because it's America, right? You're just like, I'm paying for my kid. I mean, a lot of martial arts schools, I think nowadays it's sort of like you practically pay for your belts. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, so it's there's no real world application. And I agree with Bruce being like, yeah, I mean, what's the,
Yeah.
I mean, but also with what you should say. I mean, if you want to take it, good meditation, you don't have to take martial arts to fight. I think there's definitely a deeper meaning behind it. But if you want to be able
Yeah.
to defend yourself, you got to be able to kick some ass.
So this
So
is what I
regarding-
was gonna bring up about Aikido. Basically, the most of what I've seen, I even took a few classes once, just to do it myself too. It's a lot of this, right? Like a lot of forms and things where the partner kind of, even when you have a partner, they like are intentionally going with you. They're helping you do it, and not a lot of, again, live practice.
It reminds me of like that one, the movie, and you see it a lot in like movies where it's like, I'm going to jump up and I'm going to grab your neck with like your head with my legs. And I'm going to like do this cool flip thing and like throw you. Right. Like that is something that like, that would never happen in real life. Right.
Right.
Like, because like, you have to, like you just said, you have to go with, especially the throws, right? You're sort of like letting yourself being thrown. And it's like in real life, if someone tried to actually throw me, I'm like, okay, then you're putting a force back. Like, how am I? You're not going to do that, I mean, unless you're
Yeah.
stronger than me, then you will. But I agree with that. Yeah, there needs to be some more real world application there. Like,
Yeah.
otherwise, what's the point?
Well,
So
mean,
I want
guess-
to go back to the. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, as I listened to all of this, like the debate about the usefulness of different styles and the, sort of the, I guess, more workout aspect or something. Like, I mean, I think all of these different styles can be viewed as almost like involvement in any sport, right? I mean, they're just going to teach you discipline. They're going to get you in shape. They're going to like make an athlete out of you in some way. Like some coordination is involved in all of these. And essentially, like you're driving towards some goal that requires discipline to attain, which I think that generalizes to, life more so of course, yes, there are going to be more styles that make you in specific combat situations. Some styles are going to be more useful in the real world. But I mean, again, like part of this could just be for athleticism and like learning discipline.
All right, you're trying to be friendly about everything, and that might all be true, but I'm trying to generate controversy here. Shoot,
So-
does Bruce Lee's philosophy say Aikido is bad? Yes or no?
No, actually, Aikido, I've been practicing Aikido actually. The way that like, everybody letting you go with it. In the beginning, that's what you need to do, right? You need to practice. That's why you keep doing that, right? The people actually going with it, actually, sometimes they will resist, right? If you're not doing correctly, they will feel it, right? You actually feel that actually. So Aikido is very useful art actually to being connected with each other. So things have 2 minutes, I think. I mean, regarding forms too in karate, right? Forms are important too. It's a structured learning tool. But of course, if you just focus on the forms, of course, it's going to be bad, right? Form is almost like a choreographed dance, right? You practice it, but it's not a dance techniques, right? It's a way for you to practice it, but it's the tool, but it's not the whole thing, right? So, yeah, as Bruce Lee, don't focus on the finger, otherwise you're going to miss the moon, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess for me, I want to say last few things about Bruce Lee. Basically, I think martial art to me is basically means to him is to express himself honestly. That's what martial art means to me, to him, right? And I think I like that as well. And that's why like every movie, everything you do, like I think that's why people like him because he's so real. Like he always advocating be yourself, right? But be yourself, you need to know yourself first, right? So he used martial art as a tool to kind of discover himself a little bit, to know himself. So self-knowledge, right? But his thing is, that's why I like, because every time I see his interviews, his movies, and I think that people like him is because he just so real. That's why he resonates every kind of people, like different country, different race. It doesn't really matter. He almost like transcends like race in a way. So yeah, and that's why he's very confident because he doesn't really care because he's been fucking real, right? So I guess that's something that I want to closing as that, just so be real, I guess, and be water.
Be water, be real.
Real water.
Yeah,
Be real water.
And there's a lot of things that we did not touch on. Maybe we're gonna save it for maybe a part 2 sometime in the future. So
You could always bring it up again.
yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
What was the
Alright.
number one thing you wanted to touch on that we couldn't talk about?
That's one of the things, like be water. There's like be water, and then use no sound as style, right? And then be real. So, yeah,
Mm.
these things. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
good
Oh.
advice. And next
Oh,
week. Oh.
Yeah, and that's one thing that empty your cup. I forgot how to tell the parable in the story. Empty your cup. So anyway, maybe next. Every time he teaches class, sometimes he teaches students just like empty your cup before you come to the class.
Mm.
For your
come in
mind kind of
without,
deal.
yeah, like
Exactly.
come in without prejudice or assumptions.
yeah.
Just
Yeah, and there's a
Free
parable that I
spoken.
want to tell, but I forgot. So anyway, time's up for this week.
Oh. Okay. Well, next week we're going from that to taking drugs to make yourself feel better. So
Yeah.
From martial arts to drugs. Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, dude. For next couple of weeks, me and Matt might be defending our defense, so we might take a few breaks. We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you need to take, next week or any other week, just stay tuned. If we're here, we're here. So, all right. So, and I'll take us off. So.